Hello, welcome to Toffee TV. This is the first episode of the Ned Cam podcast. I'm joined by Cameron Hay from the Mighty Blues. Cameron, how are you, mate?
I'm all right, mate. I'm all good. Yourself?
I've been better, I'm not going to lie. I've been better.
Why?
Been
What's
a
up?
bit just Everton, to be honest, mate.
No, I know.
Well,
I know.
we'll start off with the Palace game. I've not watched your reaction yet because I wanted it to be spontaneous on today's podcast. But how was you feeling after it?
Disappointed, of course. I think everybody was. It's a weird one, isn't it? Really, because I compared it to the Fulham result and the Burnley result and the Newcastle result, but the difference was we didn't lose this game. It just very much felt like that. Having as many chances as we did, certainly in that first half, and not taking them, you don't really expect to go on and win a game after that. The two strikers were absolutely atrocious. And look, maybe it was just a one-off. A common theme throughout those games I've just mentioned previously was that we all sat here and said, Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison didn't have enough chances, so we can't put the blame on them, whereas we can't say that for Monday's game. So, yeah, disappointed, mate. And to be honest, it's sort of just expected now, isn't it? Every time we play at Goodison Park, I don't expect a decent result at any point now. I just look forward to playing away, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, we had, was it 6 big chances? And it was 6 big chances missed. And I don't think we've had 6 big chances in any game at all this year, to be honest. All put together.
Yeah, I read a stat this morning, and I think it said something like the last time we had as many opportunities as we did on Monday was the West Brom game, and obviously we scored 5 in that one. So I watched the highlights today. Just some Palace fan had put together a highlight reel. It was of Gaeta's saves, but obviously it was of the chances that Everton missed. And the Richarlison one, you'd swear he'd score 9 times out of 10. The Calvert-Lewin 2 chances 1-on-1 is disappointing. But again, it's like I said. We can sit here and say it's just one of them games, but we've seen it far too many times at Goodison Park this season. So it's sort of just, I don't know. It is what it is at this point, isn't it?
Well, with Big Dom, what do you think the problem with Dom is? Do you think he's not a? I don't think he's a technically great footballer. He's for me, he's a poacher. He scores a lot of scrappy goals inside the 6-yard box, but he needs to. If you're not good with your feet and you can't create your own chances, then you need to be clinical when you get the odd one. And we've seen him in games like West Brom. He might have only had 1 chance, 1-on-1 with the keeper, and he's fluffing it. He needs to be a bit more composed for me. What do you think it is with Dom? What do you think he needs to improve on?
I think it's his confidence, to be fair, in front of goal, 1-on-1 situations. I just think his head goes completely out the window. I think he loses all calm. I think the thing is with Dominic Calvert-Lewin is he's come a long way this season and last season. And since he joined Everton, really, I mean, this was a striker who used to drop into basically defensive areas to pick the ball up and then try and run the whole length of the pitch. And now he's sort of figured out and worked with Duncan Ferguson. And to be fair, I really like Dominic Calvert-Lewin because I think he's done a lot of that himself. A lot of his progression is down to him and his work rate and his work ethic. He's got his head down and he's wanted to improve, and he has started to get in the right areas. He's dominant in the air now, but if we're going to talk about Dominic Calvert-Lewin on the level of striker, and comparing to the likes of Harry Kane, if we want to talk about best in the league, then Harry Kane would have had an hat-trick within half an hour on Monday night, the chances that he had. I just think Dom loses his cool in front of goal. I think when he's got time to think, he doesn't make the right decision. When he has to snap at something, he's there, he's on the end of it. He seems to have that instinct, but when he's got a couple of seconds to think about what he's got to do, he always seems to just make the wrong decision. I mean, that first chance on Monday, I've watched it again about 3 times. He could have just knocked it past the keeper on the right-hand side. Gaeta's already on the floor, mate. He's basically lying down, saying to me, I'll take it round me, and he just hits it at him. The only place that he could have saved it. If he'd have took 1 touch round the right-hand side, a little bit like Richarlison did against Southampton, I think it was, then he slots it comfortably. And we're 1-0 up in 10 minutes, and Palace's confidence is gone. But I think he don't know whether he gets a bit worried or whatever, but I just think he loses his head a little bit, loses his calmness and panics.
I just don't think he's not scored a lot of goals 1-on-1 with the keeper, has he, this season?
No,
he's not. I mean, was the first chance the pass from Allgate? It wasn't it?
Yeah.
He opened his body up perfect, and the angle was there for him to slot it bottom right. And he does this so many times. He tries to hit it. He'll open his body up to hit it bottom right, and he did it against Villa. I don't know if you remember Villa Park last season when the space was there to hit it in the bottom right, and he hits it straight at the keeper. He puts his foot across it and just goes the complete wrong way. So, listen,
I think what
Yeah, go
Oh,
on, sorry, mate.
go on, sorry. No, I was just going to say, I think what he does is, I think he sort of focuses more on hitting the target rather than
Yeah.
actually taking it round and slotting it in the back of the net. And I think that's something he needs to improve on. And I've got no doubt that Dominic Calvert-Lewin will go away in the summer and focus on those sort of opportunities and keeping his calm and sort of slowing the moment down in his own head and having that time to compose himself. Whereas I think when he gets it in that situation, he just thinks, I best hit this at goalie here on target and hope that the keeper doesn't get to it. And you're absolutely spot on, mate. It's not like we're sitting here saying, oh, it's a one-off that, he usually scores them chances. He's had about 5 or 6 one-on-ones from memory this season that he's done that in the exact same fashion. So he needs to improve on it, but I'm sure he will. Look, this is a lad who come in and, couldn't really head the ball when he come to Everton. Certainly wasn't getting in the right areas in the right times, and now he's doing that. So he needs to improve on that. But again, I'm sure he will, hopefully.
He was a good wing back though, wasn't he, when he come in?
Yeah, he's brilliant. Brilliant right winger. Probably could do with him at right wing back now, to be honest with you, mate.
Yeah. Well, we've seen him score. I mean, we've seen him score finishes like against was it Brighton a year ago or 2 years ago, and then Palace when we scored the second one in the last few minutes of the game a couple of years ago. So I'm guessing it's just like you said, it's confidence or his composure in front of goal. But what about Richarlison? Do you think it's a poor season or a purple patch, or do you think we've maybe just not overrated him, but do you think he's maybe we value him a lot more than he's actually worth?
I think he's had a difficult season this season, to be fair, Richarlison. It's mad, isn't it? Because you look at where we are now, and I said it on our reaction the other day, the fact that we're still within a few points from even Champions League qualification. I mean, if we win that game in hand, I think with 2 points behind fourth is mad. It just shows how mad this Premier League season has been, because you watch us at Goodison this season and you'd swear we were fighting at the bottom end of the table. We're that bad. Yeah. So it just shows how mad it's been. And Richarlison has now a great season. And if Richarlison would have been on the form of last season or the season before, then who knows where he would be in terms of the goals that he would have scored. Again, I think he had a really, really purple patch, and then obviously he had a couple of goals against Tottenham in the cup, and then he started to score comfortably then, in game after game. He won us the game against Southampton, won us the game against West Brom, scored in Derby, of course, which is a great finish. I just think, again, I don't know whether it's his confidence. He seemed confident on Monday night with Richarlison, with the free kick situation where he took the free kick off everybody, and he wanted to have the go himself. He seemed like he was full of confidence, but I don't know whether that was sort of maybe a front, as if to say, yeah, I'm going to show I'm confident here, when really I'm struggling a bit. He's had a up and down season, hasn't he?
Do you think that's down to where he's been? Obviously, we saw him starting off of the left. And he wasn't really. I know he scored against Crystal Palace, scored a penalty, but it wasn't really. I don't think he scored many goals playing off the left, has he? He cut inside. Did he play on the left against Leicester away, and he cut inside and was right? I honestly think he's a much better number 9. I mean, split strike. He was brilliant split striker last season with Dominic Calvert-Lewin flicking him on, playing off him. So do you see him as a striker or a winger?
I think that's where he wants to play, to be honest with you. I think he prefers to play as a striker. It's no surprise that as soon as Dominic Calvert-Lewin had that little bit of an injury a few months ago, and obviously we had Josh King who could have potentially come on, it was Richarlison who was playing up front. It was Richarlison who was given that nod, and I think that's because he'd have been knocking at Ancelotti's door at Finch Farm saying, I want to play up front now, I want my opportunity. And I think, again, I like him on the wing. I do. I think he cuts inside, and I think he's he can offer us something. But I think he's a better striker. I do. I think he's on the end of balls, and like you mentioned, if you've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin flicking them on, he's very good. Richarlison, you've seen it in the Merseyside derby with the ball from Hammers. He's very good in those situations, like the Dominic Calvert-Lewin chance with the Holgate pass. Richarlison would have buried that because he just took it around the keeper and buried it. Obviously, he had one himself that he didn't bury, so it's easy to say that, but I just think he maybe prefers to play up front, to be honest with you. And I think he showed that when he's played up front at times this season, he's been a lot better.
Well, I like him on the left because he's so direct, and he's really good at cutting on his right foot. But some of the runs he makes at striker, I mean, split striker last season, he's just constantly on the shoulder and making really good runs in behind. So, yeah, I suppose I'd like to see them as a 2 again. I'm not so sure about the this. It was all right the other day because we obviously played at the 5 at the back, and we played our wing backs higher at the pitch. But I mean, the games like Burnley and Southampton, it was far too narrow. If you're going to be that narrow, you need to have full backs who can get up and down the pitch all game. So, where do you think we need to strengthen the most in this summer then?
How long have you got? I think right back is key, to be honest with you. Look,
agree.
I think Seamus Coleman was very, very good the other night. I think he was, and obviously he played the 3 international games during the week for Ireland, and it was clear that Seamus. Well, I really, really do hope that Seamus Coleman was taken off for fitness reasons the other day, and not tactically, because he was arguably the best Everton player on the pitch.
I don't think it was. I just don't.
I think it was tactically.
I couldn't get my head around that. So I don't think he wanted to go off either. Because when you brought, Godfrey's not a wing back, and you allowed them to just move up the pitch then. So for me, I don't think it was a fitness thing. It was just
he should have,
wasn't it?
He was our best defender, and ultimately it was the best game Seamus Coleman's had for Everton in a long, long time. And look, I love Seamus Coleman. I think he's great, and he's done a lot for the club. And obviously, he's a brilliant ambassador, and he's a fantastic fella. But I think we're in the sort of the same situation with Seamus now as we were with Leighton Baines in 17-18, where you're sort of looking at it thinking you've still got something to offer the club, and you could still be an important member of the squad, especially if we get into Europe, which is basically a flip of a coin now. But starting week in, week out, you're not going to get 38 games a season from Seamus Coleman. You're just not, because of his injuries, because of his fitness issues. And even if you did get 20, 25 games out of him, you're not going to get it at the level that you need. So for me, a right back is an absolute necessity. Somebody that can almost mirror what Luca Dean does on that left-hand side, but on the right-hand side, and get forward like Seamus used to do and bomb balls into the box, which he did a couple of times on Monday night, to be fair, but hasn't done that anywhere near enough this season, and understandably so. And then for me, mate, again, it's difficult to sit here and say another midfielder, because we signed 3 midfielders in the summer. We signed Decore, Alan, and James, and we've had massive injuries to Alan this season. James has spent months out here and there. You've had Decore, who's now out for 8 to 10 weeks, which just makes me want to cry every time I think about it. But I'd still really, really like a midfielder who picks the ball up and just takes control of games, just takes that responsibility, takes 3 or 4 players on and gets them. James is a very, very... Let me rephrase. James is an unbelievable footballer. And I mean, that goal the other day just shows his quality. He literally, if he'd have put it anywhere else, even a centimetre either side, it's blocked. There's 4 Palace players in front of him. The goalkeeper's on the fantastic game at this point, and he slots it in the most narrowest place he could put in the goal. It's a brilliant, brilliant finish. But he doesn't run with the ball. He's not going to pick the ball up, take 6 players on and run with it. He'll pass it brilliantly from a standing area. And that's important to this team. But I'd like a midfielder who picks the ball up, even if it's from the back 4 or from Alan, and can just take 3 or 4 players on and then give it to the wingers or give it to James to create something. I just don't really think we have that at the moment.
Well, I mean, Coleman was so good on Monday because he was such an attacking threat as well. But he had that, because we played the 5 at the back, he was covered at the back. He didn't have to worry about getting up and down all game, dropping so deep and getting right up. So for me, if we get a right back... I've not watched many right backs, but obviously we're linked with Max Aarons. I'm not really seeing much of this Baku. But if we get a right back who can do both, he can get back and defend, and then he can get forward, and he's up and down all game. Because Coleman can't do that all season, can he? He can probably play about 5 to 10 games a season, filling in for someone. But then if you get someone who can do both jobs, then you don't have to play 5 at the back. You can put an extra man in midfield, and that's where you go get your Sumar or your Sangari, and another big player with legs who can get up and get us up the pitch faster. So for me, I think that right back is so crucial. That's so crucial for me. But obviously, we saw a substitute on Monday, which was sort of felt like a new signing. We saw Gbamin come off the bench. Do you think it was the right time to see Gbamin coming off the bench in the Premier League?
I said it the other day, mate. I think it's the wrong substitution, to be honest with you. Look, before we get into it, I want to say it's fantastic to see Jean-Philippe Gbamin make his return. I think it was nearly 600 days, 597 days or something like that. And it was brilliant to see, and it'll do him the world of good for his confidence. It'll do him the world of good for the next few games. And it's very clear that Ancelotti wants Jean-Philippe Gbamin to have an important role to play between now and the end of the season. I think certainly with Decore being out for another however many weeks, you're going to need a big physical presence in midfield, and hopefully Gbamin can be that. But when you're 1-0 up and the opposition are chasing an equaliser, to put a lad on who hasn't played in a year and a half and has got no match fitness whatsoever, hadn't played in any of the under-23 games from my knowledge. Okay, he might have played a couple of games at Finch Farm, 11-on-11 training games, but again, and he didn't do anything wrong, so it sounds mad for me to say, because he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't get dispossessed. I just don't think he was match fit. And if you watch their goal back, and if we're being hypercritical, don't get me wrong, Michael Keane just basically runs through ours, and and Robin Olsen just as if he's running for a hot dog or something.
Yeah.
But Gbamin is one of those midfielders that's just stood. Don't get me wrong, Sigurdsson stood as well, and I think maybe Tom Davis the other one. But Gbamin's one of those that's just stood with nobody around him, not marking anybody, watching that piece of play just go through him. So I think for as much as it was brilliant to see him back, and it's great to see him back, and I can't wait to see him again. I just think if it had been 3 or 4-0 up, boss, bring him on last 20 minutes,
absolutely.
no worries whatsoever. If he makes a mistake, he makes a mistake. It doesn't matter. 1-0 up with the opposition chasing, knowing that we really needed to win that game for the fight for Europe, to take an advantage on Chelsea who drop points, Tottenham who drop points, and just for the confidence of the players, really, because we've been dreadful at home this season. I don't think it was the right sub, personally. It's great to see him back, don't get me wrong, and it was brilliant to see him back, but I just think, maybe and again, it's mad because you look at the bench and you think, well, the only other one you could make maybe a case for is Josh King, but it's not like he's lit it up this season when he's come on. He's done nothing really. Not that he's had many chances, but he's done nothing, and everyone else was, obviously a young player who hasn't had much experience either. So again, it's sort of difficult, and I understand where Carlo's coming from. James very clearly wanted to come off, or Carlo said he didn't want to risk him, or whatever it may be. But I just don't think it was the right time to bring Gbamin on, to be honest. I'm not blaming Gbamin for the goal, by the way. I'm just saying he's one of the 3 or 4 midfielders that are just standing around and watching that passage of play out.
Well, it's awareness, isn't it? If you imagine you've not played, well, you've played 1.5 Premier League games, and then you're injured for almost 2 years, and then you get thrown on in a game where the other team, we 1-0 up, and the other team's going all out. They're bringing on 2 strikers. They brought on Mathew and Batshuayi scored, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah.
And then you've got to somehow defend and keep that 1-0 lead. You're not playing for 2 years, and the game must feel so fast and intense for you. And I don't know if patronising is the right word, but for me, it would have been. Go on, sorry.
No, go on, mate.
Well, for me, it would have been. If you're 1-0 up, I don't think Palace were too bothered if they didn't go away with any points. If James wanted to come off, why didn't we bring Josh King on?
Exactly. But you look at the strikers as well. It's not like Richarlison and Dominic Calvert-Lewin were having a good day at the office. Why not take one of them off and put Josh King up front and let Josh King get on the end of some of those balls that were coming into the box, or some of those chances? Who knows? Josh King might have buried one of them one-on-one opportunities. We haven't seen enough of him. Again, I think with Gbamin, it was great to see, but I just think it was a little bit sort of, again, it was sort of a substitution you'd have expected if we were comfortably. If Richarlison and Dominic Calvert-Lewin buried the 355 million chances they had in the first half, then you'd have said, Sam, bring Gbamin on with 4-0 up, with 4-1 up, whatever. Sam, bring him on. No issues whatsoever. But it just, again, it seemed like he was thrown to the wolves a little bit there. And yes, he didn't make a mistake individually, and yes, he was okay. And people might sit there and think, well, your point's void because he didn't do anything wrong. But I just think, again, he was clearly not match fit. He hasn't played in a year and a half. And at that point, we needed to shore it up. We needed to make sure we didn't concede, which we did. And we could have done with going on and getting a second goal. And Gbamin was never going to bring another goal. He was never going to score. I think the game for me, just to touch on briefly, I think Palace, ultimately, they were doing, but the way in which they scored was a similar situation to what they've been doing all game. The one-touch play was far too easy. They were playing it round us. They'd done it 3 or 4 times in the first half. Eze had a shot, which was saved by Olsen before Dom's shot. I think he had another shot in the second half. Benteke had, and Zaha were flicking it past. It was just that they didn't have the quality in the final third to hurt us, but it was far too easy for Crystal Palace to play round us throughout the entire game.
Well, just before we move on, what would you take on the free kick situation in the first half? I've heard Carlo said apparently that they put Richarlison on free kicks before the game. But if that's the case, why is James and Sigurdsson and Dean all pulling faces and arguing around him? And why wouldn't Seamus Coleman going over as a cap? I don't want to criticise Seamus Coleman too much because he was brilliant. But why don't you go over and say, who's on free kicks? Richarlison.
That's exactly my point.
So unprofessional, isn't it?
That's exactly my point, mate. I think you've just hit the nail on the head. I said, Seamus was brilliant the other day, and he had a fantastic game. He did. But as a captain of the club, as a captain on the field, he should be picking that ball up and going. If it was Richarlison that was told that he was taking free kicks before the game, then that's sound. Go up, pick it up and say to James, Sigurdsson and Dean, you all know we had this conversation. He's taking free kicks today. So here's the ball. You move away. For me, while James Rodriguez is on that pitch, he should be taking free kicks and corners. Absolutely. There's no question about it. Absolutely no. The fact that we still see I don't care if it's Dean, Sigurdsson, Richarlison, Godfrey. The fact that we still see other players taking dead ball situations when James is on the pitch blows my mind. Absolutely blows my mind, because that lad's delivery is above anybody else at the club. Sigurdsson has got a good delivery on him, but it's nothing compared to James. James's delivery is unbelievable. We've seen that. He put in a couple of good corners the other day when he was allowed to take them, and one, I think, just went past everybody. Nobody bothered jumping for it. It was a great ball in. So I have a couple of issues with the free kick situation. One is that if it's Richarlison that's being tasked to take it, why isn't it James that's being tasked to take every free kick? Because you knew as soon as they were arguing and they were bickering, the ball was going in Rose Head anyway. Knew it wasn't going anywhere near the goal, because it always happens in them situations. Players have a little bit of an argument, they make themselves look fools, and then the ball ends up in the stand anyway. It never goes in the back of the net. But like you said, Seamus should be cut.
Yeah.
You're right, Richarlison takes it, we'll just act like we're going to take it. But you look at James, he walks away shaking his head. Dean and Sigurdsson are sort of looking at each other, smiling. If Richarlison's been tasked to take the free kick, why are the three of them even bothering standing around? If you're standing around for the tactic, great. But why are you standing around wanting to take it when you know Richarlison's being tasked to take it? And if Seamus does see it, again, he mightn't have seen it, but if he does see it and he knows what's going on, just go over and pick the ball up and say, yeah, Alan done it earlier on in the season. I can't remember what game it was, but Alan done it early on in the season where I think it was Richarlison wanted to take a free kick, and he walked over, he picked the ball up and he gave it to Sigurdsson and said, no, he's taking it, and he moved Richarlison out the way. And it was done within 5 seconds. Game goes on. Was
that the penalty against, was it Chelsea?
It might have been the penalty against Chelsea, yeah. And I just knew it was a situation where we had the dead ball and he just went over and picked it up and said, no, he's taking it, move away.
Richarlison was sulking after that, wasn't he? Because he didn't get to take the penalty. So for me, because of that, it was because, I mean, I honestly don't believe they've said to him, oh yeah, Richarlison's on free kicks today. Because we've seen it early in the season when he wanted to take a penalty and Sigurdsson took it, and he was screwing up to Sigurdsson and then sulking after it. So I just think it's unbelievable for a Premier League team that's meant to be chasing Europe. It's unbelievably unprofessional.
I get that, emotions are heightened and every player wants to take a free kick in a dangerous area, and you've got Dean who can take them, Sigurdsson who's not scored a free kick since he's been at Everton, barring one in a pre-season friendly against Blackpool. But surely, Dean, Richarlison and Dean, Richarlison and Sigurdsson can all stand around and go, it's probably best letting this Colombian wizard with an unbelievable left foot and a brilliant right foot take this free kick here, because he's either going to float it in perfectly towards Mina or Keane, or he's going to hit the target. Because you knew, as soon as Richarlison stepped up, you knew he was going to try and bend it in that far corner, and it's such a difficult technique. And he's not like he scores free kicks every week. He doesn't take free kicks and he doesn't score them. So I agree with you. I just think it was a bit of a laughable situation, really, that made themselves look a bit foolish.
Well, moving on, we had some sort of victory over Easter. Obviously, the youth team in the FA Youth Cup went and beat City 1-0 with a last-minute winner from, was it Luke Butterfield?
Yeah.
I think, did he play? Is it Chelsea in the 5th round? And then if they win that, is it Tottenham or West Brom in the quarterfinals? So do you think there's a good chance they can go on and win that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Manchester City game was brilliant, wasn't it? It was absolutely fantastic. A last-minute winner, 97 minutes, 7 minutes at a time, and it was in the 97th minute, 35 seconds, and it falls to Luke Butterfield, and it's a great strike. It's an absolutely unbelievable strike, and it was what they deserved. And like you said, a goal in the last minute like that gives you so much confidence and so much momentum going forward. And they have got another couple of difficult games coming up: Chelsea, Tottenham, difficult fixtures. But ultimately, when you beat a side like Manchester City, I know this isn't the Manchester City in the Premier League we're talking about, but it's still a Manchester City side that are massively funded and have got a very, very good academy. Players like Phil Foden have come through that academy. It's a big result. It's a big result, and like I said, they should be feeling all of the confidence now to go on and get the win against Chelsea and then progress further in the cup. Obviously, we had the injury to Tyler Onyango as well, which is extremely disappointing. Wish him speedy recovery.
Well, I was going to say the only downside was seeing Onyango being stretchered off. Has he had his surgery, or is he having surgery? He's had his surgery now. It was on his ankle.
It was a horrific tackle, horrific
Yeah,
challenge. And I know the lad probably didn't mean to do it. He definitely didn't mean to hurt him because nobody does. But it's disappointing because Tyler's had a fantastic season. Ultimately, he's played every time he plays in the under-18s. He's like Messi playing in a normal game. He's absolutely brilliant. He plays in the 23s. He's very good. And when he had that chance to come on and make his debut with Thierry Small against Sheffield Wednesday in the Carabao FA Cup, a few months back, he wanted the ball. He was confident. He was calling for it. He wanted to get it. He wanted to play. He looks a top player, Tyler Onyango, and a player with an absolutely massive future. And it is disappointing for him, but we just all have to support him. And I'm sure he'll come back a better player. And everybody, you'll have the full support of the club. But it's disappointing when you see a lad have such a good season and then it end like that with a horrifying challenge.
Yeah, well, do you think they really needed to play him? I mean, I think he was going to be. When you get to the last few games and you got nothing to play for, and you might be, it's like your last game, 3-0 up or 3-0 down, and then you bring that youngster on to give him some Premier League minutes. We saw with Tom Davies and Jared Branthwaite last season. Obviously, he come on because of the availability at centre back. But do you think we could have saw Onyango possibly make his debut in the Premier League this season?
Yeah, I don't see why not. To be honest with you, I think with Onyango, the mad thing is he's playing in the under-18s consistently, obviously before the injury. He was involved in the under-23s, and he's pretty much always in the matchday squad in the first team as well. So it almost seems like that player that throughout the 18s, the 23s, and the first team, he's just always there, be it playing or be it on the bench. And, Tyler Onyango is a player who I've sat here a couple of times watching Everton go and bring him on, give him an opportunity. He's big. He's a physical presence in the midfield. He's good with the ball at his feet. He can tackle. He's fast. He picks the ball up and runs with the ball. We spoke before about wanting a player who picks the ball up and runs with it. He can do that. So it is massively disappointing because I agree with you. I think we would have seen him before the end of the Premier League season. I mean, I don't expect much in these last 9 games, to be honest with you, because Everton are about as consistent as a chocolate fireguard. So I really don't expect much. So I would have thought you would have seen Tyler Onyango maybe in the last game for 10 or 15 minutes, give him that experience. So it is disappointing, but ultimately, like we just said, he is usually he's head and shoulders better than everybody on that pitch when he plays for the under-18. So you can sort of see why he played. But yeah, it's disappointing, and it wasn't great to see at all. And you just got to wish him a speedy recovery and hope that he comes back ready for next season, really.
Yeah, of course. What do you think? What do you think the next thing is for Onyango? Then obviously we've seen some highly potential players like Dowell and obviously Pennington as well, who's like 26 now. We've seen him just rot away in the under-23s. That's from when we said from such a young age, they're going to be brilliant. So do you think the next thing for him would be go out on loan for a couple of years, get some experience? In a lower league, we've got to battle and really work hard.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a couple of players there who there's now question marks over in terms of the futures with Everton. Obviously, you've got Thierry Small, who there was a few rumours around contract situations with him. Ellis Sims currently out on loan. At Blackpool, you've got Jared Branthwaite out on loan, who, again, you mentioned there, come in towards the last few games of last season and was brilliant in the Premier League. He looked like he was a seasoned professional there, and this is a lad who was playing League 2 football before that. So I think Tyler Onyango fits into that category of players who ultimately playing in the under-18s and playing in the under-23s isn't really doing much for the development whatsoever, because you can clearly see whenever Tyler Onyango plays in the under-18 specifically, he's much better than anybody. He's more physically dominant. He's bigger. He carries the ball comfortably. And he does it in the 23s as well. He performs 8, 9 out of 10 near enough every week. So I think playing there constantly isn't really doing much for his development. I don't really think Carlo Ancelotti sees him as somebody that's going to come in and play in the Premier League week in, week out. Yeah, he'll be involved in the matchday squads and he might come on every now and then. But again, Carlo hasn't seemed, certainly this season, to have that amount of trust in the younger players. Obviously, we had the big debacle with Niles Nkunku when Luca Dean got injured, and we all wanted Niles Nkunku to step in, and he didn't. So I think for the next move for Tyler is definitely a loan move, a top championship level club where he's playing week in, week out. And it's, obviously it's more physically demanding in the Premier League in terms of you're playing a lot more games in the Championship than you do in the Premier League, and you're playing constantly near enough 2 times a week. So I think, if he can guarantee a Championship loan where he's going to play every week, then perfect. If you can't, then maybe a League One loan where he's going to play every week, like you've got with Ellis Sims, and building that experience up and letting him go out and get that, not just that match day experience, but that competitive match day experience, because
Yeah.
playing in the Championship against Derby County is going to be more beneficial for him than playing against Aston Villa's under 18s in the under 18s.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think that's his next move personally. But and hopefully he can come back, he can recover, and he can get back to fitness to the point where in the summer we look and go, right, we've got this loan move for you. You're going to go and play every week. I don't know. Name it Middlesbrough, somebody like that. Just a random example of a Championship club.
Another Blackburn maybe, although it's not been too great for Jad Brantwaite, has it, so far?
No, he had a couple of good games at the start, didn't he? And he had a lot of praise, and then he had a couple of difficult games. And he's going to have that. He's a young kid. He's a young lad. He's going to have difficult games of football. I mean, the last 9 games of last season, I think he was playing a lot on adrenaline, wasn't he? He was brilliant. I remember that Aston Villa game. He was absolutely fantastic. But he's going to have difficult games. He's going to make bad decisions. He made the tackle for just before he went on loan, I think, for the under-23s on the line, which was absolutely exceptional. So you can see the quality that he has. You can see the potential that he has. But it would be a disappointment. Like you mentioned a couple of names there, Kieran Dahl. Obviously, we've had a number of players throughout the years that you sort of look at in pre-season and you go, he's the next big thing here. And it never really happens. They end up playing for Norwich or Watford in 2 years' time. So it would be disappointing if the likes of Onyango and, Small and, Brantwaite went down that path. So it's important that the pathway for those players is set in stone and it's in place. And that pathway ends with playing first team football for Everton, because if it ends with signing for Norwich, then what's the point?
Well, I think the thing with Onyango is he's the perfect type of player we need, that big box to box energetic midfielder, but obviously a few years behind. So I think developing him and getting him some experience in a lower league where he has to battle and really work hard is certainly an important factor for me. But obviously, you mentioned another player in the academy, Thierry Small. What do you think the future holds for him? Obviously, with some rumours that he's trying to get a move away, or he might be signing that contract here. I don't know whether you believe him or not, but what do you think holds for him?
I think Thierry Small, he's been touted as the best left back in the world for his age group, hasn't he? He's been compared to the likes of Alphonso Davies at Bayern Munich, which is a fantastic comparison because he's a brilliant player. I really like Thierry Small. Big compliment. I liked him at Thierry Small. I think he's a great little footballer. Obviously, he made his debut, youngest ever Everton player in a competitive game against Sheffield Wednesday in that same game. I think it's difficult for Thierry Small because he's got, for me, the best left back in the country who's playing week in, week out, and Niles Nkunku, who is very, very good and obviously still inexperienced, and maybe a loan move for Niles Nkunku was on the cards as well. I don't know. But again, Niles Nkunku, when he stepped in this season, has looked really, really bright. Certainly going forward, he's looked fantastic in those cup games. Again, I don't particularly blame Thierry Small. I've seen a lot on Twitter about, his attitude is this, that, and the other. This is a young lad who just wants to play football. And I understand where people are coming from, is that he's 16 and he shouldn't expect. But I think the way in which that article was written about him potentially wanting to leave was a little bit misleading. I think it was written as if it's Thierry Small's gone into Ancelotti and said, I want to play every week in the Premier League. I don't think that's the case whatsoever. I think he's probably said, I want a little bit more involvement. I want to make the matchday squad on a couple of more times. I want to maybe come off the bench and have a little bit of an involvement. I want to be training constantly with the first team. I don't think it was as black and white as Thierry Small wants to play every week at left back and wants to outplay Luke Dean. I don't think that was the case whatsoever. But ultimately, again, it's a decision the club are going to have to make. What is Thierry Small's pathway? Is his pathway a loan out and maybe, again, like we mentioned with Tyler Onyango, playing week in, week out in the Championship, or League One, like Ellis Sims was doing, and then forming himself into a Premier League level footballer and playing for Everton week in, week out? Or is it going to be, we've got Luke Dean for the foreseeable future now. You've got Niles Nkunku, who's probably the next in line to build into that left back. So is Thierry Small's future looking a little bit bleak at Everton? Again, it's a decision the club are going to have to make, but I really like Thierry Small. I think it'd be very, very disappointing if he was to leave.
Well, I mean, I've heard that he's happy to stay anyway, so I'm guessing the transfer rumours were just rumours trying to spark things up in the window, I'm guessing. But, I mean, you mentioned Niles Nkunku. What do you think the next thing is for him? Do you think he should go out on loan? I mean, is he 20 or almost 20? So he's getting to that stage now where he's got to decide, is he going to go out on loan and make himself try and improve and get himself into that first team?
I think it's an option. I think probably, to be honest with you, obviously, it's difficult for any left back coming through at Everton because you've got Luke Dean at left back who's absolutely exceptional. But the reality of that situation is you don't just want one left back. Luca Dean spent 2 or 3 months out injured this season, and obviously we had to adapt and put Ben Godfrey there. And again, you're looking at Thierry Small's situation, and he's not just looking at Dean and Nkunku in front of him. He's now thinking, right, well, if Dean gets injured, it's probably going to be Godfrey because he's done a fantastic job there, and then it's probably going to be Nkunku, and so he's probably number 4. So again, I think with Nkunku, I would like to see Nkunku more in the Premier League, to be honest. I'd like to see him coming off the bench with 20 minutes to go, because I think he's got a raw energy and a raw talent about him. And certainly, we just spoke about the Palace game. You look at the Palace game and Gbamin coming on with 20, 25 minutes to go. And you're sort of thinking, he's a young lad with raw energy, raw pace, and just wants to impress. You're seeing the assist for Moise Kean earlier on in the season in the Cup. It's brilliant. He takes everybody on, he gets to the byline and he backheels it right in his path, and Moise Kean slots it. So I personally would like to see Niels Nkunku coming on with 15, 20 minutes to go in games and just having that raw energy to work against the tired opposition, because ultimately sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need a player who the opposition are going to look at and go, oh, he's pure pace, this lad, he's going to absolutely run rings around us in the final 20 minutes here, even if he doesn't produce anything final product wise. And I'm not necessarily saying bring him on at left back. Why not bring him on at left midfield? Why not bring him on and say, right, you just run about, force the opposition into making mistakes?
Absolutely.
But I don't think Carlo Ancelotti sees that. I think he'd prefer to put on a Gomez or a Sigurdsson or somebody else. So I think a loan deal probably, is the way forward for Niels Nkunku. But personally, I'd like to see him involved a lot more in the Premier League.
Well, that would be another good thing about getting Europa League as well. We get more games, more chances to develop younger players, and another player we possibly, for me, if we were to get Europa League, would be, obviously need a bigger squad. I would be looking at signing Joshua King on a permanent deal, but I don't think the manager's. I've got the impression that he doesn't really like him. It's obviously not got onto he's not got a good start anyway for Everton. So what do you think the future holds for Joshua King? Do you think we should sign him on a permanent deal, or do you think we'll let him go and look elsewhere, depending on whether we get Europa League or not?
He's a mad one, isn't he, Josh King? He's an absolute mad one, because we signed him, we brought him in January. He is effectively on a glorified loan. He's come in for 6 months. He's out of contract in the summer. We can decide whether to sign him or not. If we don't, he goes on and signs for somebody else. If we do, he signs for us. I think you mentioned European football there. It's a big summer for Everton, whether we finish in Europe or not. If we don't finish in Europe, we've got to drastically improve, because Europe next season is an absolute must. And I mean, this season it'll be disappointing, and there'll be a lot of unhappy Everton fans. But if we don't finish in there next season, it'll be carnage. Sorry. But in terms of Josh King, again, I think it baffles me a little bit, because there's been games where you're sort of thinking, why not start him from the off? I don't think Josh King coming on with 5 or 10 minutes to play at the end of a game is doing him any good whatsoever. You're almost asking a lad to change a game. Impossibly, the balance is in play. Usually with the balance is against Everton, usually we're getting pinned back in the last 10 or 15 minutes, and you're bringing on a lad and almost saying, right, go and do something with 5 or 10 minutes to go, when he's not going to have much sort of opportunities or creativity given to him. So again, he hasn't started the game for Everton this season. Why? I don't know. He had the West Brom game, which would have been a great chance to start him. Even Palace, why not bring him on 60 minutes, 50 minutes when Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison are missing one-on-ones, every 5 seconds. Why not bring Josh King on? It just baffles me a little bit.
Well, if Hammers wanted to, if Hammers wanted to go off, then it's really up to the manager anyway. But if you're bringing Hammers off anyway, why bring on Gbamin? Why not bring on King? Keep Palace, further up the pit, further back. Keep our team further up the pitch. Don't let him come at us so easy. And he's a player with pace, and I don't think Gary Cale's the fastest player, and I don't think Palace are the fastest team. So bringing on a player with pace who's fresh, it certainly stops him getting higher up the pitch. And he is that player who can play on the counter, and he can change. I don't know if he can change the game like we've seen him for Everton, but I mean, he coming against United, he won that free kick that led to the goal, didn't he? I think he did a step over and beat a man. It was tricky bit of skill, nice bit of pace. So for me, we need to see more of him before the end of the season. But he'd be a player if we'd get into Europe, and I'd be definitely signing him on a permanent deal. And we still need a striker regardless whether we sign him anyway.
if we don't sign him, we just got to go out and fill that space anyway. And if we finish in Europe, we need as many good quality players as we can. I'd just like to see him start a game before the end of the season, to be honest, mate. I just want to see him what he can do from the off, because I really don't think 5 or 10 minutes at the end of the game is benefiting him much at all.
Yeah, he's so versatile as well, isn't he? He can play wide. I mean, he's tall and he's quite, he's strong, so he can play in that Dominic Calvert-Lewin role as well. So for me, he'd be an absolute steal. He was not going to cost us anything. So I'd like to see him more towards the end of the season, but at the moment it's not being so great. I mean, you touched on the Europa League thing before. I think before the season, I predicted us to finish. I think we all said about 8th, 7th or 8th would be fine. Not too much if we miss out on Europe. If obviously if City win the quadruple or at least the domestic treble, they got a bigger chance of getting to Europe with 7th or 6th or 5th or whatever. But I think now it's been such a. We had such a good start, so we've been sort of around like not in the Champions League spots, but fighting. There's a big chance we're going to get that top 4 and push on, or at least the top 6. And if we were to finish 8th now, it'd be so disappointing.
Yeah, definitely. It's been it's been a mad season, and it's been a mad season for everybody. Look, Everton aren't the only team who've been dreadful at home this season. Liverpool went 3 years without losing at home and lost 6 or 7 on the bounce. Leicester haven't been great at the King Power. Man United haven't been brilliant at Old Trafford, certainly not at times this season. So it's been a crazy season, but you look at some of the wins and some of the highs. You've got the Derby win, first time in 22 years, beat Spurs for the first time, I think, in over a decade. We went 7 on the bounce at the start of the season and top of the league. Then, obviously we've had 2 quarterfinals as well. Some really good results against Chelsea and Arsenal when the fans were in the stadium. So it would be very, very disappointing if we weren't to finish in a European position at the moment. For me, mate, it's a flip of a coin. I said it on our live stream yesterday. I would be as surprised if Everton finished 10th as I would if we finished 4th, because again, the thing that I think with between now and the end of the season is it's about consistency. When you look at sides like West Ham, and okay, they mightn't be able to compete against the sides that are above them, but near enough every time they play anybody below them, they win. They win those games. I know Wolves scored twice the other day and pulled it back, but they obviously managed to get the win, which is all that matters. And I think the teams that are consistent are going to be the teams that finish in those places this season. And I don't see where Everton's consistency is going to come from. I really don't. I mean, you were to say to me, now you lose next week to Brighton and you beat Tottenham, I'd be shocked because Tottenham is a Goodison. But I wouldn't be I'd expect it, because again, the games like that you expect to win, your Palaces, your Burnleys, your Fulhams. I mean, if we won all of those games, we'd be fighting with City at the top of the league.
Be second.
It's crazy. It would be second comfortably. We haven't lost. I think we lost to Chelsea away, we lost to United, and we lost to City. They're the only games that you think, probably, again, can't really say much about them. Every other game's been a joke.
Well, I'm sick of saying before a game, we win this, we go. I mean, how many times have we said, we win this, we go top 4? And it's like, what? I wish someone would just tell the players that, to be honest. But I mean,
you're thinking about that, and that's just getting to the head. I don't know.
I mean, if you look at West Ham's form, they've been brilliant at home. And then you look at ours. We've played 15 games, so there's 45 points at home, and we've took 18 points. 5 wins, 3 draws, isn't it? 18 points, which is absolutely abysmal for an Everton team. But then you look at our away record. I think we've only lost 3 games, haven't we?
Yeah.
And 2 of them win a week of each other, which is not quite like us. So like you said, it's a strange season.
It is. It's mad. It is mad. And look, there's a lot of, there's a lot of if, buts and maybes, and we can all sit here and say, but when the fans are back. I mean, the 2 games we played with fans at the stadium at Goodison were brilliant. The Arsenal game, I know we played United in the Cup, not counting that, but the Chelsea game was brilliant. It sounded like there was 40,000 Evertonians there, and we performed really well, defended really well. The Arsenal game, we come back, we got the win after they pegged it back to 1-1. Really good second half in that game, defended brilliantly. So we can sit here and say, well, when fans are back in stadiums next season, maybe we'll have a brilliant home form, and then Ancelotti sort of mastered how to go away from home and get results. But again, you could then say that for every other team, really, because it's not like we've been the only team that have been poor at home this season. So it's been a mad one, mate. It has, and like I said, I don't think anybody can definitively sit there and say, I know where Everton are going to finish this season, because it could be 5th, it could be 10th. And I'd be as surprised with both of them as each other, to be honest with you, because again, You look at some of the games we've got coming up. We've still got to play Villa twice, Arsenal, City, obviously last game of the season, Wolves, Tottenham. So it's Everton, isn't it, mate? We don't know.
Well, to finish off, we're at Brighton away the next Monday. Are you feeling, obviously it's an away game, so we might be completely different. Are you feeling confident? Would you stick with the same system we played on Monday, that the five at the back and the sort of diamond up front with James behind the two strikers?
It's difficult for me because I don't like five at the back whatsoever. I really don't. I just don't think we defend well with five at the back. I don't think Mina, Keane and be it Godfrey or Holgate or whatever, I don't really think they completely understand that five at the back formation. But that's difficult to say when we created about 300 chances the other day and it was down to Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison not converting. I am confident. Because we're away. If we were at home, I wouldn't want to talk about it, to be honest, mate. I'd be head in my hands. And I'm confident every time we go away because we seem to set up really, really well away from home to nullify teams. Brighton are in a battle, ultimately. I know they're slightly above the relegation zone, but they'll still be looking over the shoulder. They're still in a battle.
Well, the home form's pretty shocking, isn't it, Brighton? Especially for the past 3 years. It's probably worse than ours, which is not good.
Saying something that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, again, and that's something that Everton have got to capitalise on. I mean, away has been we've been brilliant away from home this season, and hopefully we can go on and continue that. But if Carlo mentioned bravery before his press conference against Crystal Palace, he said if we're brave, we can finish in the European positions. Now, you'd call that brave the other night. I mean, missing as many opportunities as we did, I don't think you can. But if we want to talk about bravery, he's mentioned mentality before this season. He's mentioned, players just sort of being a little bit lackadaisical and sort of overlooking games. We can't be doing any of that now. We need to be going to Brighton and getting the 3 points ultimately. If we want to be seen as a side challenging for Europe, you've got to beat Brighton away. No disrespect to Brighton, but you've got to beat Brighton away from home. And I'm a confident. Look, I think, again, it'd do the world of good for Richarlison to score. It'll do the world of good for Dom to score. Hopefully we can sort of put that game behind us against Palace. It feels like we're talking about a loss, doesn't it? We took a point, which isn't good enough, I know, but it feels like we're talking about a loss. But hopefully we can put that behind us and we've got to go out and win ultimately.
It feels like an absolute loss, to be honest. Especially, it's worse when you're 1-0 up and you've had 6 missed big chances and you come away with 1 point. It's unbelievably frustrating, but I think the thing for me for Brighton, I'm gonna put Everton to lose on my Toffee picks, because it seems every time I put Everton to win on my Toffee picks, or I'll put them to win on my betting thing, then they always seem to lose. So I'm gonna be completely unoptimistic and just put us to lose, and hopefully that will get us the 3 points. But inside, I'm feeling confident about Monday. So yeah, I suppose we'll see. Cameron, thank you very much for coming on the Nedcam podcast. Cameron will be on every week because it is the Nedcam podcast, otherwise it would be just a Ned podcast. So there you go. Thank you very much for watching. If you want more videos, including exclusive live videos, including a phone in, then head to Patreon, subscribe. It's literally cheaper than a Big Mac, and Big Macs don't even fill you. You can catch Cameron on the Mighty Blues channel over on YouTube. Thank you very much, Cameron, for coming on again. And there you go. Thanks for watching, and see you later.